Hi, hello there, I'm Matt from Digital Spy and I'm joined by Ben.
Hello, Matt.
Hi, Ben, and welcome to our spoiler cast for the third episode of Telltale's Game of Thrones. This is the third in many spoiler cast discussion that we're doing, so if you haven't played this episode yet, or the others before it, then please stop now and come back later, because obviously there's going to be a ton of spoiler discussions. And we're doing these every month, so if you go to subscribe, then you can tune in every month and listen to what we think as the episodes are released. So we'll start with the opening character, which was Asher and his storyline. And one of the most interesting things I think for me was kind of the choice in that episode, where it was the typical Telltale, like, here's two characters, one of them's going to die, and you have that choice. But it turns out actually the choice, no matter what you pick, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's just the character you don't save just gets a little bit burnt and pissed off, really.
Yeah, which is obviously the opposite of every other Telltale games. Which is good. And then you have to chat to them afterwards and like be going like, well, why? They ask you why did you pick the other person, which I thought was got a quite neat spin. It's probably if you're just playing this series in its own right, it doesn't mean much. But if you played lots of Telltale games, it's kind of a nice little inside thing, I think.
Yeah, I saved Malcolm, and Beshka was a bit sore about it, and I just reassured her, saying, "Oh, you know, Malcolm's family, and you're tough. You know, I know you can take care of yourself. You know." So she seems to be okay with it.
Yeah, I picked Beshka to save, and Malcolm was quite annoyed, and I said, "Yeah, you're tough. You know how to handle yourself." It was like, "Well, family's first, and I'm risking a lot coming out here, and all that sort of thing." So yeah, I thought that was quite neat. Otherwise, Asher, I don't know. Cool fight scene as always, but not a lot really happened. You kind of end up at Daenerys' camp.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just kind of get a brief glimpse of her and what she could be up to and what she kind of wants. And more interesting things happened with other characters, I think. So let's go to Gared on the wall. And he joined the Night's Watch officially. He's become a ranger. And yeah, you basically find out more about the North Grove, which is probably, for me, it's one of the more interesting things about this game in particular. So I'm glad we finally come back to that storyline.
So what is the North Grove exactly?
I think someone described it as there's a power within it that will actually kind of help who's doing it. So it suggests that the family could be saved and we kind of access this power, this unknown power.
But we don't know what it is exactly that will help us.
No, and I think that's what makes it really interesting. We know there's kind of like a lot of like kind of mystical elements to Game of Thrones, and this game hasn't touched upon those a lot. And I think if you kept up to date with the show to date, like that's starting to get really more interesting. And yeah, Gared's storyline, I think last month it was very much like a setup episode of like here's Jon Snow, but for here like actually kind of the wheels started turning.
Yeah.
And I think it ended with a fight against Brit, a guy who killed your family. And
yeah.
I wonder how did you approach that? Because I tried to be like a good ranger and not attack him at all, and only kind of like retaliate. But it ended up killing him anyway, because obviously that's how it's meant to go.
I made him suffer when I was presented with the choice, and the reason for that is because it's just for consistency with the character. Because in the first episode, you know, you were given the choice whether to kill one of Brit's guys or not, and my Gared killed that guy. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to let him get away with it, because this is how Gared's dealt with it in the past. This is how he's going to keep doing it. He's going to be screwed either way. Because if he's going to be on the run anyway, if he's going to search for the North Grove anyway, it doesn't matter if you know, the wall is against him or not.
And then there's Mira's storyline, and that had one of the most interesting moments in the episode of me, where Marjorie knows that you've been kind of like talking to Tyrion in some fashion, and then there's a moment where like you're with Marjorie and Tyrion approaches you, and you've got to decide whether you kind of like obey her and like kind of stay away from Tyrion or kind of join the conversation. And you went with Tyrion and you chatted to him.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like, you know, family should come first. Like I tried to reach out to Marjorie, and she tried to help, to be fair, but she wasn't effective.
The interesting thing about this is that I was like, well, no, I'm going to go with Marjorie, and we can hopefully talk about this later. And he just tells you in front of her, which is quite
yeah.
Which I thought was really, really amusing, because it's like no matter what in this situation,
Marjorie's going to be pissed at you either way.
Yeah, and you can't really avoid it. And it was like, obviously he says it in such a way, it's like, oh, the rolled keys on my desk, very kind of casual way as if to say like, you know, this isn't a big deal, but to Marjorie it is. And for me it was like, well, you can't get away with this. You can't get away with Marjorie not knowing. Then there's the Purple Wedding and Joffrey's death, which is done quite obviously done off screen. So, it's very much like this thing in the background, and then your deal with Tyrion kind of falls apart, because it's like, well, you can't be associated with him because apparently he's been accused of murdering the king, and you got to get this decree back with Tom, which I thought was quite like just almost a bit of a slapstick scene of you just running around the castle and like, he's climbing through the roof and he falls down and you're hiding.
It felt a little bit silly.
Yeah. It felt a bit long-winded, and then there's a choice at the end to destroy the decree or not. And what did you do?
I burned it.
I kept it. The same reason I don't know why, but I kept the knife as well last episode, and it was just one of those things like, well, if they find this on me, I'm screwed. So why am I keeping this? I don't know, there's something that told me maybe I should hold on to this, and I thought afterwards maybe, well, who knows whether this will actually matter, because like the dagger in the last episode, it feels like the whole kind of you killed the assassin and the coal boy hid his body. That was kind of like briefly mentioned this episode, but then it just feels like it went away altogether. So maybe the Kree won't matter at all. And then there is Rodrik's storyline, and that had quite a few. I don't know, very, very kind of tense moments as you're basically trying to decide whether you should be submissive or kind of, I don't know, fight against the kind of Griff and his men who are garrisoned in your home.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of most intriguing parts about it is you meet up with Gwyn at night time in secret, and she tells you that there's a mole in your group, there's someone who's leaking information.
And we both think that it's the mother. We're both kind of surprised, like that makes sense, and like as you said, there's a bunch of reasons why it kind of it's kind of like the less obvious choice, right? It's like your own family, but if you actually look through all the different scenes, it's like she's trying to appease the situation as best as possible and save her son. So maybe the best way to do that is just being submissive and kind of like feeding information. But
now I'm thinking it might be too obvious if we're both thinking that.
We'll see whether it is her. It's going to be quite interesting whether that is the case. But yeah, to me it seems like this, if there's going to be a plot twist, it's probably going to be her.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, like towards the end, like at the very end, Griff is kind of beating you down, and you get the choice whether to kind of submit to him. I chose to be defiant, and the game made me stand up, like get up like 3 times. And there's like quick time events where I was just mashing the button, and
for me, I had an easy time. No quick time events. It's very much like, do you want to get up? No, lie down for a bit longer. And then in the end, that kind of saved the sister who's kind of like currently in trouble. Kind of biting the guard, and that kind of was like, well, actually the punishment is being dished out to you rather than her, so I think that kind of worked out. So on to next month and our predictions. So Asher, hopefully will kind of, I don't know, his storyline's been slowly moving so far, so with the introduction of Daenerys, hopefully things will start actually kicking off, and there will actually be more to see here. But Gared, we actually see this in kind of like the teaser reel for next month. It seems like you'll join forces with the kind of the wildling Cutler, and you'll actually kind of go and find the North Grove. Mira, I think, is the biggest mystery, because I don't know, obviously she could be in serious danger, but I just don't know how the game is going to kind of react to the events that has happened. And then there's Rodrik, and again it's teased that there is like a meeting with the White Hills, like he summons you. So it seems like that is kind of coming more to a head, because I think the last 2 episodes kind of been like, it's been like really tense situations, but basically not a lot has really happened apart from the whole mole revelation.
It's a lot of build up, really.
Yeah, so hopefully something will actually kind of like kick off, and I don't know, that will come to a head either way.
I feel like a major death is coming. The first few episodes, obviously in the first episode, the Ethan kid, he gets killed. Yeah. But since then, the last 2 episodes, only like, unnamed characters or villains have got off.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And, we kind of had like the Purple Wedding, but that's kind of like a very much off-screen thing. So you're right. I think soon there has to be, I don't know if it would be a major character. I think they played that card in the first episode where it's like Ethan dies at the very end. So yeah, maybe we'll see a death or 2. I think that would probably... Yeah, it's not Game of Thrones without a few shocks and surprise deaths, right? So maybe that'll happen fairly soon. Okay, then that's it for this week. Ben, thank you very much for joining me. And if you enjoyed listening to this, then give us a subscribe, as we're back for the 4th, 5th and 6th episodes. And while you're there, you can give us a like, tell us what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching.